covering the Trump administration is unique. I think in the past, in every administration, journalists, particularly in Washington, sort of chase after breadcrumbs or different scoops here and there, and they all sort of chase one thing or the other. In the Trump administration, it's like there's an entire feast of different stories of different issues unfolding and different controversies and different potential conflicts of interest in top Trump administration officials, and trying to cover everything out all at once can be overwhelming. I think the news cycle is definitely a lot faster. A big story that might have stuck around for a week or even 2 weeks a few years ago now barely lasts an hour before we moved on to the next big breaking story or the next big scandal in the Trump administration. And it's really difficult to try to keep up with everything. And at the same time, it's really difficult to write about policy issues and, what might be going on in South Sudan or what might be going on with the burgeoning genocide in Myanmar, because Trump himself sucks up so much oxygen in the room. And so even then, within the space of foreign policy coverage, it's already narrowed by Trump, but it's narrowed even further by everything that Trump and his administration is doing. And I think that is also in some ways to the detriment of Americans who are, need to stay abreast of what's going on in the world. And it's hard to do that when 99% of the headlines that they seem to see on cable news these days is all about Trump. I think that there are a lot more disaffected people in government. I think that there are a lot more leaks. I think that there are a lot more career professionals who might have never talked to journalists before privately, off record, that are now reaching out to journalists and saying, hey, what I'm seeing is wrong, or what I'm seeing is messed up, and I think that you need to shed a light on it. I think that the American people need to know what's going on. And in some ways, that's been completely unprecedented. I mean, if you guys talk to older journalists, I've only been a journalist for a short time, but I had a colleague who has been a journalist for 4 or 5 decades, and I remember covering a few State Department stories back to back on what Tillerson was doing internally to wreck the State Department, and we were getting calls left and right from people at the State Department saying, I've never talked to reporters before, but this is messed up, I need to tell someone. And my colleague who had been a reporter for decades turned to me and said, I'd never seen anything like this.